Hi, everyone. Good day to everyone out there. I'm coming to you live from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I know there was a mix up when it's probably user error, but when when I created the broadcast in the streaming tool that I use called StreamYard, I think I put it for the wrong time. So let me just make sure, let me see. Okay, we're live on LinkedIn and okay, yes, all right. I'm looking on my phone to make sure that I'm live. So if you would, for me, just put in the comments, just let me know that you can see and hear me. And I'll just pause just to make sure that you can see and hear me. Like I mentioned, I'm coming to you live from Fort Lauderdale. I'm actually on vacation, but I could not let this occasion go unrecognized because we have something really incredible to celebrate today. Hi, Mauricio. Thank you, Mauricio. Okay, you can see and hear me. Okay, great. So I'm coming live to you today to celebrate Reliability Centered Maintenance's 43rd birthday. Excellent, Usman. It's working perfect. Okay, great. Thank you, Amin. Okay, and I know my backdrop is a little funky. It's because I'm on vacation. I'm in a hotel, and I know. And if I put my glasses on, you can see the reflection. So I'll put my glasses on when I have to absolutely read something. Okay, great. Thank you. Dennis is here. Thank you, Dennis. All right, excellent. So let's begin. Welcome, everyone. If you could, for me, put where you're watching from in the chat for me. And let me share my screen. And we're going to get ready. We're going to get started with our celebration. All right. Let me see. Let me know. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm only using one screen, and then I can't see. Okay, well, let me see. Hold on. I can do it. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Just cut me a little bit of slack today because I usually have two screens, and I'm usually in my office, and I'm in a hotel room right now. So, okay, let me go back to sharing. No, I don't want to do that. Share. I'm getting there, guys. You know, while we're waiting for me to get myself sorted out, if you could put in the chat, let me know. I'm interested in what your biggest reliability problem or pain point is. If you could put that in the chat while I'm getting myself sorted out here. I'm trying to share my screen. And like I said, I usually use two screens. Okay, let me see. I don't know. Let's see if this works. Okay. There's like a 30-second delay with the app that I'm using. So I just want to make sure that you can see my screen, that you can see my PowerPoint. But so let me see here. Now I'm on my phone. Oh, I think, okay. Yes. All right. Well, you can see me and the slide is a little smaller than me, but that's okay. We're gonna roll with it for today. So we're not going to put ourselves in the prison of perfection. I'm not going to put myself in the prison of perfection today. Today, it's just going to be as good as it is. Okay, Amin, thank you for joining. Ziad from Saudi Arabia, Woot, I think from the Netherlands, Usman from Kuala Lumpur, Mahmoud from Egypt. Oh, Stephen, you're in Florida. Awesome. I'm in Fort Lauderdale. Joseph from Nigeria. Naveen from Atlanta, Delaware. Amin. That's awesome. Isn't it incredible with technology today how we can how we can all be so connected? And I know, like, for example, with COVID, a lot of stuff is virtual now, and hopefully we're rounding the corner on that. But in life, there is duality, right? There's good and bad. There is light and dark. There's day and night, and both always exist together, because you can't have good without evil, and you can't have day if you don't have night. And so really, when it comes to any situation in life, and specifically, I'll just mention COVID, I mean, that's really ugly and really nasty, and it's been very nasty for a lot of people. If we step back from that and you consider COVID, a lot of things have gone virtual because of it, and so we're able to reach more people. We are able to meet more people, so to speak, and I don't know. In a way, we've even developed a better sense of community, even though we're farther apart. So I am looking forward to getting back to in-person stuff and being with people. But just keep that in mind, that in any given situation, even when there's something negative, because of the duality in life, there has to be something positive. So anyway, there you go. Now let's get to our celebration. So we are here to celebrate Reliability Scented Maintenance's 43rd anniversary. And I've got a couple of screenshots for you. And you see, this is one of the first pages in Nolan and Heap's report. Now, if you don't know the entire story, I'll just recap it super quickly for you. Back in the early 1960s in the commercial airline industry, the crash rate was steadily increasing, and it got to the point where it was really unacceptable. So they needed to improve the reliability that they were getting from airplanes, because crashes were actually happening. Well, they embarked on an enormous amount of research, and what they realized is that their entire maintenance program was modeled on the fact of an incorrect assumption, and that was that most things fail because they get old. Well, we know now that that is not true, that the reality of failure is that the majority of failure modes, right, roughly 78%-ish, right, 75, let's just say roughly 3/4 of failure modes occur randomly. So if you apply preventive maintenance, like a scheduled replacement or a scheduled restoration, on something that fails randomly, not only are you wasting time, right? Because random means it has the same chance of failing today as it does tomorrow, as next week or next year, right? Well, not only are you wasting your time, but you can actually make things worse, because you can destabilize an otherwise stable system. And that's what they figured out back then, that they were managing failure modes incorrectly. And that's what gave rise to reliability scented maintenance. So it started in the commercial airline industry. And it was in the mid 1970s that the United States Naval Air Systems Command was kind of sniffing around the commercial airline industry, like, how are you guys coming up with your maintenance? And they commissioned United Airlines, because Asean principles were first born within United Airlines. They commissioned them to write a report on how they came up with their maintenance. And it was namely two authors of the original RCM report. Of course, there were other people on the team, but Stanley Nolan and Howard Heap, where you see on my screen here, Stanley Nolan and Howard Heap, they wrote this report, and they called it Reliability Scented Maintenance. So they wrote this book. It was commissioned by the United States government, and that is why Reliability Scented Maintenance, the principles of RCM, are in the public domain. And so that's why nobody owns reliability scented maintenance, so to speak. It's in the public domain. And their book was published on December 29th, 1978, 43 years ago today. Now, something that I find remarkable is that not only are the principles embodied in this report still relevant today, in my opinion, they are even more relevant because technology keeps advancing and we have more things we have to take care of and consider. But the thing about reliability centered maintenance and its principles is that they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Meaning they never go out of style. They are, I can't think of the word, but the principles of RCM are firmly rooted in the reality of equipment failure, how failure modes occur, and these principles are still relevant today as they were then. And that is why this process is still around. Let me pause and let me see if you have any questions. You can put them in the chat. And I'm looking at my phone. I have LinkedIn pulled up on my phone because, like I said, I'm only using one screen today. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. And I just want to, I asked you to put in the chat the biggest pain point or the biggest problems that you guys are having when it comes to reliability. And I can see culture change, culture resistant, to prove its value to people in organizations. And, you know, it's really incredible, Mahmoud and Jose. I hear that same thing over and over again. And I think I understand one of the biggest reasons why that people are resistant to that culture change. And it applies specifically to reliability centered maintenance, because here we are to celebrate RCM's 43rd birthday, right? So 43 years have gone by and this process is still around, but there are still so many organizations that are not implementing it. And I think I know why. You know, reliability centered maintenance is tried and true. And I like to compare reliability centered maintenance to our own bodies and to our diet, right? And now, especially now, we've got the new year just days away. And one of the biggest resolutions that people make is to get fit and lose weight, right? Now, losing weight is simple, but it's not easy because it requires will and it requires discipline. Because after that initial, you know, rah, 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 sis, boom, bah, I'm going to do it this time, I'm going to lose the weight. After that initial excitement, that feeling like, okay, I really want to do it this time. After that fizzles out, all we are left with is our will and our discipline. And it's simple, but it's not easy to control those two things, right? So and even losing the weight, in my opinion, is easier than keeping it off, because once you lose the weight, you still have to use your will and your self-discipline to maintain a healthy diet, right? Not overindulge. And it's very easy to. I mean, most of us, nearly all of us, have been subject to that. Well, see, reliability centered maintenance is the same way. It takes will from everyone within the organization, right? From top management to the people on the shop floor or the people in the field. It takes everyone's will and everyone's self-discipline. It takes time and it takes resources to implement. And I think that is why, to a large degree, organizations are not employing it. Now, I first learned reliability centered maintenance when I was an intern. I was working for the Naval Air Systems Command in Lakehurst, New Jersey. And, you know, we started an RCM program on support equipment, and we realized fantastic results. Now, I left government service in 2001 to start my own business because I wanted to apply RCM more broadly. But I'm really proud to say that RCM program is still going strong, like 24 years later. And it is because the will of the people there and the discipline to carry on with the process exists there. So there you have it. It takes time and it takes resources. But if you do implement it, it can really turn your reliability program around. It's just that we have to stop long enough to do it. Okay, so there's that bit. Let me look in the chat and just see if you have any questions or anything. Fixed mindset, expensive and difficult to implement, not enough time for it. I hear that the most. Thank you, Chris. Well, it definitely takes resources and it definitely takes time. But when it's done correctly with the right people, RCM can be implemented relatively inexpensively. And I say relative, right? Because everything is relative. Because if you do it right with the right people, you will get way more back than you put in. But it's that, getting started and convincing people, obviously. Okay, the next, I want to show you on the next slide, and I know it's a little small because I've got my setting. I need to change the setting so that I'm smaller and this is larger, but if I fuss with it, I don't want to break it. So we're just going to roll with this today. We're just going to roll with it and I'll read it to you. This is another page in the report and I have it boxed off here and it's really small. I know you maybe can't read it, but I'm going to read it for you. It's keywords, right? And especially now in the age of the internet, you know how sometimes you'll like type into Google. We're essentially typing in keywords when we Google something. Well, some of the things here is it says flight safety, logistics, product improvement, reliability, and system effectiveness. So even though the name is reliability-centered maintenance, it lends itself to the idea that this is all just about creating a maintenance plan. And a huge part of RCM is creating a maintenance plan. But the idea of it is much larger than that. And Nolan and Heap, they touch on that here, just in like the third page of their report with the keywords, where they've got product improvement, reliability, and system effectiveness. And I want to talk about that today. Okay. Before we talk about that, the idea of reliability and the name of this live is what put the scented in reliability scented maintenance. Let's talk about this. In their report, in Nolan and Heap's report, they outline 4 different types of tasks in a scheduled maintenance program, right? Now they use different words back then that maybe we use. But the first one is inspect an item to detect a potential failure. What they're talking about there is condition-based maintenance, or CBM, or another synonym for that is on-condition maintenance, right? Where we monitor for vibration, for example, or we measure our brake pads. So there's condition-based maintenance. The next line here says rework an item before a maximum permissible age is exceeded. So here they're talking about an age-related failure, and they're talking about a scheduled restoration or a scheduled overhaul task. The next one is discard, and that's a scheduled replacement task, right? Where we may replace our oil every 7,500 miles. And the other one is inspect an item to find failures that have already occurred but were not evident to the equipment operating crew. Here they're referring to failure finding. And that's how we take care of our protective devices. I mean, like if you can't see it right now, but above me, there's a sprinkler head and there is a smoke detector in this room. Those are protective devices that are intended to keep us safe in the event that something else goes wrong. So reliability-centered maintenance gives us the tools to figure out if and how often a CBM task should be assigned, scheduled overhaul, scheduled replacement, and failure finding tasks. It's all bundled into this incredible process. Okay, so before we move on to the crux of the live today, I'm going to check and see if you have any questions or comments. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So if you have any questions or comments, just do put it in the chat and I'll check on that. But for now, I want to talk about the word scented, right? Because now when we hear the term reliability scented maintenance, it's just like anything. After a while you hear something and you know what it means, but it becomes rote to your ears or to your mind. So let's focus on that. Reliability centered maintenance. In other words, it's centered on reliability. And what is reliability? That's what I want to talk about. Okay, so first of all, for any of you out there who maybe you're not familiar with reliability centered maintenance, it consists of 7 steps. The first one is functions, then functional failures, then we identify failure modes, and then failure effects. Now, those first 4 steps make up what we know to be an FMEA or a FMEA, a failure modes and effects analysis. So one of the misconceptions of the process is, or one of the questions I often get asked is, should I do FMEA or should I do RCM? Well, when you do RCM, you already are doing an FMEA. Now, the 5th step is failure consequences. This is when we assess whether or not a failure mode has safety, operational, non-operational, or environmental consequences. Now, steps 1 through 5 make up the FMECA, or the failure modes, effects, and criticality analysis. In step 6, we identify if there's any proactive maintenance that we should do, like a CBM task, a scheduled replacement, or a scheduled restoration task. And step 7 is when we identify if there are any default strategies. Like, for example, a failure finding task is a default strategy in the context of reliability centered maintenance. How often should we blow smoke at the smoke detector? That is a default strategy. Maybe for a particular cause of failure, we say no scheduled maintenance. We consciously decide we're not going to do anything proactively to manage it. That is a default strategy in the context of reliability centered maintenance. But all of these steps and all of the decisions that we make as responsible custodians are all centered on reliability. Now, the next question then is, what is reliability? Because you could ask that question to a lot of people and you could get a lot of detailed explanation. We could get into some significant mathematics about it, but I just want to step back and be simplistic, because if we can understand things on a simple level, then we can build on that. And really, reliability, to understand what it is, it's really quite simple. If you had, let's say you have a compressor in your organization, and it does exactly what you want it to do when you want it to do it. It doesn't have any unexpected breakdowns. I'd be willing to get that you might walk around saying, hey, that compressor is really reliable. It's reliable because it gave you what you needed. And that's what reliability is. It's getting what we need from our equipment. And that's what the first step of the RCM process is all about. There is no mistake that reliability centered maintenance, that the first step, that it starts with functions. So when we identify functions in reliability centered maintenance, we don't identify what the machine was designed to do. We write what we need the machine to do. Now, this is for 2 reasons. One, it's obvious, right? Because if we don't start with what we need something to do, well, then how are we going to be able to figure out how to take care of it, right? But the second thing is, and we hear a lot about inherent reliability, right? So in essence, inherent reliability means that is what something can do, right? You can't make a compressor give you more than it was designed to do. That's inherent reliability. But we're not looking, when we write functions, to identify the inherent reliability of a piece of equipment, because we have to make sure that what we have gives us what we need. Now, that may sound really simple, right? But how many times, put it in the chat, how many times have you come upon a situation where you buy a new piece of equipment, you put it into service, and right from the outset, it doesn't do what you need it to do? And maybe even some small things, right? Maybe it's maybe you bought it and where you intended to put it, you can't anymore because maybe electrical outlets aren't where they need to be, or hookups, or something like that. Or you didn't think of something ahead of time that you needed that now this machine doesn't give you. So there's that right out of the gate, right? But also, as time goes by, most of us are working in organizations where we're working with equipment that's 10, 20, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 years old. So needs change as time goes on. So we often have to go back and sanity check to make sure we can get what we need from our equipment, because a lot of times chronic failure is because we're overworking a machine. We're trying to get something out of it that we cannot. So that's why we start the RCM process by writing functions. It's centered on reliability. And what is reliability? It's functions. It's what we need from something. And I have a really simple example to share with you. First, let me just check the chat. What percentage of labor is typically invested in each of those 4 types? Okay. So Chris, I think, Chris, what you're asking is on a percentage basis, what percentages, for example, condition-based maintenance and preventive maintenance and other default strategies. In my experience, condition-based maintenance has the largest percentage, and that makes sense because we know that most failure modes fail randomly. And just because something fails randomly doesn't mean it cannot be managed. That's where a potential failure condition comes in, where we can monitor to see if something is in the process of failing, like vibration signatures and like heat and like measuring wear, that kind of thing. So that's the answer there. Definitely a much larger percentage when it comes to condition-based maintenance. Jose says it's centered on our expectations for the asset. That is exactly right. I love that, Jose. If you don't mind, I want to use that in the future. Yes, a function is essentially an expectation. And it's just like even in human relationships, if you don't state what you expect from another human being, how can they give you what you need if you don't tell them what you need? It's the same thing with our equipment. Okay, so here's the example I want to share with you. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, obviously, if you're watching me on LinkedIn, then you follow me there. And if you're watching me on YouTube, you follow me there. And just as a little aside, one of my goals for 2022 is to reach 1,000 followers on YouTube. So if you use YouTube, if you could go to youtube.com, type in RCM training online and click the subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Okay. But I do a lot of videos that I post on LinkedIn and I post them on YouTube, and I've got a really good plan. I'm going to take 2022 by storm. So I've got a plan to do a lot more videos in 2022. And one of my needs that changed, this is directly related to functions, is I usually record my videos with my cell phone. Now the problem, and essentially this is what I've been doing for the last 3 years. I've been making my videos. I hold my phone like this and I push the record button, and I do this with my arm, and I hold it, and after a while, my arm starts to get a little shaky, and maybe the camera starts to shake a little bit. But the thing about that is it definitely works. But with the front facing camera, the quality of the video is definitely not as good as what the back facing camera would be. But I can't do my videos like this, because then I won't be able to see myself, and then I won't be able to see if I'm in the frame or not, or if what I'm wanting to show is in the frame or not. So my needs have changed over time with my vlogging. So I recently got a better camera. I've done just a couple of videos with it, but I'm still getting used to it. It's the Sony ZV-1, and it takes, the quality of the video is way better than the front facing camera on my cell phone. So if you just think in terms of functions, the way I would write my function for the cell phone would be different than the way I write my function for the Sony ZV-1, right? It has much better quality video, but there are some other things. And when you get into the meat of reliability centered maintenance, you learn that there are two kinds of functions. There are primary functions and there are secondary functions, right? So obviously, the primary function of the video is obvious when it comes to the camera and the kind of quality, the picture that you want to take. But when you think about it, there are a lot of secondary functions, right? Because if I'm recording inside, then really this is all I need. But if I intend to record outside and I'm using the microphone on the camera, which this camera has a really good internal microphone. I use this. It's actually called a dead cat. I don't like that. But you slip it right. Oh, oh. You slip it right on here, and it kind of dispels the wind. So if it's windy outside, you don't hear that. So that's really good. So that's like a secondary function. So now I need that, right? And the other thing is I have, they call this I just lost the word in my mind. It's like a vlog, is not a handle. Anyway, I can't remember. But the camera screws onto this. And when you use this, it has a little bit of motion dampening built into it. So if I'm walking, it dampens that motion a little bit, but I can also control it with the controller. So I can be holding it, like this, and I don't have to fuss with the buttons on the camera. I can take a picture. I can record this way. I can zoom in and out. And it also becomes a tripod. So if I'm out and about, or even if I'm in my office and I want to record a still video, I can put the tripod on the desk, and I don't have to actually hold the camera. So you can see there are all kinds of other functionality that my Sony ZV-1 gives me that my cell phone doesn't, right? And so that's the whole crux of this live. And the biggest thing to celebrate about reliability centered maintenance is this idea that it is centered on reliability, right? And I have one more thing I want to share about inherent reliability. Before I do that, I want to pause. Let me look in the comments. Put any questions you have, or any comments you have in the chat. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you, guys. All right. I want to leave you with this. When we first started, I mentioned the idea of inherent reliability. But remember, inherent reliability is what a machine can do from us at the outset. We can't get more out of it than it is capable of doing, right? But inherent reliability doesn't mean how long something will last without failing. Inherent reliability means how long something will last when it's protected by the right proactive maintenance and other default strategies. And that's the key of reliability centered maintenance, right? We 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 do step number 1, we identify what it is we need from our machine. We identify what could cause us in step number 3, what could cause us not to get that reliability. In step number 5, we identify what kind of a consequence each of those causes would have: safety, environmental, operational, non-operational. And then we use step 6 and 7 to decide how we're going to manage each failure mode. Are we going to do a proactive maintenance task, or are we going to assign a default strategy? So you see the majesty of reliability centered maintenance. That's the reason why it has survived for 43 years. Reliability centered maintenance is simple, but it's not necessarily easy. It's a very simple process, but it's not easy, especially because of what some people put in the comments, that you have to get buy-in from people. You have to get everyone in the organization behind it. It can't obviously just be one champion. So there you go. So what I want you to remember is that the centered in reliability is all about functions, or in other words, getting what you need from a piece of equipment. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to pause for a moment. You can put in the chat, put in the chat if you have any last questions or any comments, and then we'll end today. And again, thank you for your patience with a little bit of the, we had a little technical difficulty with the timing and everything, and my backdrop, I'm in a hotel because I'm actually on vacation. Let's see. Okay, Jose has a question. It says, how to insert or incorporate the RCM process in recent technologies and developments like software's machine learning, artificial intelligence. People are questioning it. Okay, Jose, here's how I would answer that question. Number one, and what is absolutely essential, and this is one of the reasons why I not just believe that, I know RCM is more relevant today than it was 43 years ago. And it's because of technology. To a lot of people, what I see happening is that a lot of people see advancing technology as an easy out or an easy way to get the reliability you want. Now, technology is excellent, and I wouldn't want to live without it. And yes, there are a lot of solutions out there, like artificial intelligence. There's the industrial Internet of Things. We have really sophisticated condition monitoring equipment out there that can really help. But the problem is that a lot of people, or a lot of organizations, jump to that first. Meaning the first step is to go buy the technology. But really, the first step is okay, what reliability are we looking to get? That's number one, right? And then step 3 of the RCM process is identifying failure causes. So the number one step before you go buy anything is to figure out, what failure cause are you trying to manage? And then you have to understand the technical characteristics of that failure cause, right? Because when it comes to condition-based maintenance, the whole premise of that is to manage potential failure conditions. So you have to figure out, what potential failure conditions are you even trying to manage? Is it vibration? Is it heat, etc.? And then we have to get into the P2F interval thing, right? That's a whole other live we could do, but there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done before you go buy a sophisticated monitoring device or invest in software programs and all of that stuff. So yes, absolutely, technology can be a huge time saver and can absolutely help reliability, but it needs to be done smartly. And that is definitely identifying the failure cause you need to manage. And that's where, again, you need buy-in. You need buy-in from management and everyone else, to buy in, to stop and pause and do that legwork. Okay, let's see what else you got. Okay, Naveen says, how do you see RCM evolving? Naveen, one of the things I'm going to focus on in 2022 is helping to promulgate the idea of reliability centered maintenance, because I opened this live by commenting on the fact that a lot of organizations are still not doing it, and it's just a step you can't skip, right? It's like if you want to have good dental health, you have to brush your teeth every day, and you really should be flossing every day also, right? It's like, it's mundane, it's basic, it's simple, but it's got to be done. And if you don't do that, you can buy the most sophisticated thing in the world or go to the best dentist in the world, but if you don't take care of your teeth every day, it's going to lead to failure. It's the same with reliability centered maintenance. The process has to be employed. So the way I hopefully see it evolving is that more people will start using it. And let me say one more thing about that. One of the misconceptions, and maybe I need to do a live about some misconceptions, is that if you do RCM, you either do it on everything or you don't do it at all. That's a misconception. You can apply reliability centered maintenance as broadly or as narrowly as you want. I mean, in fact, I don't know any organization on the planet that has enough time and resources to do RCM on everything. It's just not plausible. So anyway, that's how I see it evolving. I had a question that I wanted you guys to put in the chat. I had a question for you. Anyway, it'll come back. Patrick, Happy New Year to you too. Let's see. Okay, Chris says, for training on this process, do you think 4 hours of meat and potatoes basics on this process can be enough for folks to get 80% of the value? Chris, my honest answer, and this is not because my business is reliability centered maintenance and a big part of it is training, my answer is absolutely not. 4 hours is not enough. 4 hours is 4 hours is enough for maybe more senior people in an organization to understand what RCM is so that they can get behind it, right? So not everyone in an organization needs a full-blown course on reliability centered maintenance. If you want to do like an executive overview to get people on board and that's enough for them, then yes, that's enough. But if you're going to have people participate in a facilitated working group approach to RCM, they absolutely have to have a comprehensive introductory course on the process, because RCM has its own language. We start talking like failure modes, failure effects, PTOF intervals, potential failure condition, useful life, MTBF, failure finding, right? We use those terms and those concepts when we do an RCM analysis. So if you're working with people who don't understand that, number one, you're not going to get the best results. And number two, it's going to take you way more time than if you had a trained team. Now, when you're talking about the person leading the RCM analysis, like an RCM facilitator, they need more extensive training. And I know this to be true because the RCM programs that I have helped to start and that are still going on strong, the number one thing you have to make sure is that you train your people properly and train them to the right level, 100%. Okay, let me see what else. RCM is also centered on people expertise and experience, and it cannot be replaced. Jose, yes, I would shout that from the rooftops. I I will only help people do a facilitated working group approach to RCM, and that is we assemble a team of equipment experts in a group environment, and we do reliability centered maintenance together. It's very important that you get the experts involved. They understand what they need from equipment. They understand how it fails, what causes it to fail, what happens when it fails, how it matters, etc. So they're absolutely key. I totally agree. Okay. I think that's it. That is everything that I wanted to share today. I'll just pause one more moment to see if there's anything else that comes in the chat. While I'm waiting on that, I will just say, please let me wish all of you, we're days away from the new year. I love the turn of the new year because it's just the perfect time to reset personally, and professionally. It's kind of like that little nudge we need to make the changes in our personal and professional lives that we need. I've been a little behind the scenes lately. I've not been coming live. I'm working on some good plans for 2022. So stay tuned to that. And I wish you all the very best. I think there's one more comment and then we'll leave for the day. How much does a lack of data hinder this process? Excellent question, Chris. Okay, here is the good news. Most people, most organizations do not have all of the data they need to do reliability centered maintenance. But when I say data, I'm talking about like in a database or in a software program. But you have almost everything that you need, or a lot of what you need is in the minds of your equipment experts. And that's where the facilitated working group approach to RCM comes in. Okay. That's an excellent place to leave this. So thank you all. Thank you all so much for joining me live today. Thank you for your participation. I really appreciate that. Happy New Year to all of you. And thank you for following me. Continue to, because I've got some things coming up in 2022 that I'm really excited about. But yes, I'll leave it there. Thank you, 2021, to everything that you brought to our lives, and welcome 2022 to all the newness and the wonder and the new opportunities that are most definitely on their way to all of us. Happy New Year, everyone. Have a wonderful day and the best 2022 ever. Thank you again for joining me. Bye-bye.